Guys, this was one of my most anticipated movies of 2021. Right up there with Jackass. No, I'm kidding. Well, if you saw my most anticipated of 2021 list, I didn't list this one because I was unsure if it was going to come out in 2021. And little did I know it came out only 2 months after that video. Saint Maud is the name of this movie. Saint Maud follows a caretaker or nurse as she's taking care of someone who's dying of cancer. And she thinks that she can redeem her soul. This is a deeply religious woman, and the person she's taking care of is quite the opposite. And she thinks that she has a chance to redeem this person's soul. Background on this movie. So this movie was made a while ago. It was probably being produced back in 2018. It was released in film festivals in 2019. Got picked up, and just as it was going to get released, pandemic happened, and now we're finally getting to see this movie. It's coming out in short bursts on streaming here, in theaters there. It's kind of all over the place, and that's one thing I will fault A24 on. This release was pretty, bleh. I wish they had a bit more hype to this movie, because this is a pretty solid film in my opinion. A24 on that topic is the reason why I was so excited for this movie. I think they make banger films. They recently made Minari, which was a quality film, but they're most known for making horror films. Movies like the Ari Aster films, Midsommar, and Hereditary. Movies like The Lighthouse. Movies like The Witch. Just these really, really awesome horror movies. And guys who are romantic about 80s horror, I hear so many I'm gonna go on a rant. My blood pressure's going up, I'm sorry, but I need a rant right now. I see so many hipsters, not on Reddit or anything, just in the street, and they're they don't make horror movies like they used to. And I'm like they used to? Okay, maybe we're not in the 80s, where it was the golden age of horror, but horror movies now are way better than they were back in the 90s, where they had Cube. Or they were way better than they were in the early 2000s. There was a huge drought between 1994 and the release of The Conjuring. That was a huge horror movie drought, where everything was a Saw sequel or nothing, or a remake of an 80s slasher. We got fucking Leatherface remake 3 times, we got Nightmare on Elm Street remake twice. There was a solid period where horror sucked, and we're living in a horror renaissance right now. So if you think you're a hipster and you're a know-it-all and that horror sucks, you're stupid. You're not stupid, you're just a hipster, I forgive you. But this movie was also directed by a female director by the name of Rose Glass. This is her first film. Big year for female directors. As I said in my Nomadland review, the more diverse voices you get, the more diverse films you get. That applies to race, ethnicity, culture, sex, sexual orientation, and political leanings. It's not only the left-wing libs that get to make the movies. I want to see the other side pick up some steam here. But the more variety of filmmakers we get, the more variety of film we get. The more variety of film we get, the more media I consume. The more media I consume, the more popcorn I consume. The more popcorn I consume, the more flatulence I acquire. Alright, that's the way it works. No, okay, so going back to the movie, that was a pretty big tangent. So A24, Rose Glass directing. This is a very fantastic movie in my opinion. And I was kind of dying to see an A24 horror movie, because I feel like it's been a while. Probably hasn't been that long. Last one I saw was probably The Lighthouse in theaters. But this one just kind of scratched an itch I wanted to be scratched. And not all of A24's horror movies have been good. I'm not too sure if A24 released this one, but It Comes at Night I was not a fan of, because nothing came at night. Misleading title. Not everything they make is good, but what they'll make is something new. And this is something definitely new. And this is such an eerie film. Like, I can't even put it in words. It's a very psychological horror movie. And that's a term that people throw around loosey-goosey nowadays. Like, oh, I'm into psychological horror. But this truly is a psychological horror movie. Because, to be honest, nothing really scary happens until the final act of this film. There's little bursts of frights here and there, but nothing. It really builds up to that climax. And it's a very ambiguous film. And the best thing you can do in a horror film is inject it with ambiguity. Because at the end of the day, humans were a bunch of pussies. We fear what we don't know. So as soon as you inject some ambiguity in your film, I keep saying that word weird, ambiguity. As soon as you inject some ambiguity in your film, it becomes more frightening. It's just the way our brain chemistry works, I guess. And this whole movie, you're kind of questioning what's going on. Unlike a movie like It Comes at Night, it gives you just enough hints so you can kind of piece together what's going on, but all of a sudden it shifts in a different direction. You're like, oh my god, okay, I was wrong there. What is going on now? And then it shifts in another direction. This whole movie, it plays out like kind of like an Exorcist type of movie, but the main conflict you have as an audience member is this thing just going on in her head? Is this, like, truly happening? Is this really a threat in real life? How crazy is Saint Maud? And that whole time you're left questioning. And because you're constantly questioning that, this movie does earn a slower pace. Because you're constantly questioning what's going on. You're looking at all around the screen trying to pick up on some clues on whether this is all in her head or this is real life. I thought this movie was very, very good. Very solidly told. Clocks in at 90 minutes smack. You don't see movies like this nowadays. You don't see movies that it clocks in at 90 minutes, but it does. And it says everything it has to say, and it does it really well. And the lead performance in this movie, I wrote down her name, Morfydd Clark. I probably butchered it, but she's really fantastic in this film because she conveys a lot of that ambiguity. One second you're like, okay, I guess she's normal, and the other second you're like, oh, okay, you kind of lost me. And then the other second she returns to normal, which is a very difficult thing to do as a performer, is to like win over the audience, then lose your audience, then win it back. And she does it really well in this movie. Honestly, as far as female performances go this year, I think she had the best one. She's not going to get nominated for anything, unfortunately, because horror movie, like, I know this is a controversial thought, but horror movies are just not real movies. Like, they're just not. Like, you look at a movie like Nomadland, and that's a real movie. But, like, a movie like Saint Maud, it's not really a real movie. It's more of, like, a fake movie. So, I don't think she should get nominated for an Oscar, although she did have the best That was all sarcasm, by the way. This is all sarcasm. No, I think she should get nominated for an Oscar. It's just the Oscars don't like horror movies, so it's fine, whatever. I'm a little salty. But because it's my favorite genre, and it's like they're constantly getting shafted. Alright, other than that, cinematography, very well done. The scares in this movie are very subdued, yet very effective. There's some, like, gory moments, but you don't quite see what's going on, and all you hear is, like, noises, and all you see is the main performer's reaction, and you're just like, ugh, like that. This is a very well done horror movie, very slow, but very merited. Very deep themes as well about faith, about following faith, and how much of that is within, and how much of it is Jerusalem syndrome versus how much of it is real. And I think it was a very interesting film through and through. Had this come out a few months earlier, it would have been one of my favorite movies. Definitely would have been on my top 10 list. Please go watch this movie. Go pay for it. It's definitely worth your money. Every penny of it. I don't know. Back on the issue of the Oscars, I'm sorry. I'm not letting this go. The Oscars claims to be it wants to be progressive, and I get that. It wants to prove that it's not just a bunch of rich white dudes living in fucking LA, like, smoking a pipe. I get it. They're trying to be more progressive, yet, historically speaking in film, horror film has always been one of the more progressive genres. Now, a lot of it is exploitation, and don't get me wrong, I do like my exploitation films. I love seeing boobs. Uh, but a lot of it too is progress. Like you look at Night of the Living Dead, directed by George Romero. Back in that time, they weren't making movies starring black people and starring women in a role like that. And that remains true. Look at a movie like Candyman, which came out in the 90s, very progressive film. Historically, horror movies have always been a more progressive genre when it came to minorities. And the fact that the Oscars try to be so hip and so progressive when it comes to that, yet it won't nominate a whole genre that's known for being like that, is a little ridiculous for me, but it's whatevs. This is one of the best movies I've seen in a while. Very fantastic. I suggest you watch Saint Maud.
All the good girls go